Hey there, toy collector friends and Transformers fans alike. Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Triple TC, that's the time traveling toy collector, and today I'm very excited to be having a look at last, having seen so many other people receive this, at last to be having a look at Transformers Studio Series 86, Transformers the movie, Constructicon Scrapper. Now, there's a few things to already take notice of, particularly if you're someone who's been paying attention to the channel for a little while now. You'll know that I've got a Studio Series playlist, Studio Series 86 playlist, that is, and they're all in numerical order. And now we've arrived at a point in time where Hasbro have ditched the numericalization of their Studio Series 86 line, which for me, and I think for some other collectors, is a little bit of a disappointment. You know, it's a bit of a shame because we do like to have lists and this, that and the other if you're a collector, and you may even be watching this going, oh, I know what you're talking about, with a slight private cringe. Although there's nothing to cringe about. It's good to have lists and things in order, but no more. However, as this is going into my Transformers Studio Series 86 playlist, I will continue the numbering myself, and to be fair, it's a good job they've stopped because their numbering isn't very great, as you've possibly noticed here. We will come back to that in a second, but yeah, oh, even Megatron's fallen over in shock and dismay at what's been going on here. So yeah, so Studio Series no longer has a numbering scheme. I can see some logic in it, and in other cases I can't, because how do you know which ones you've missed if you haven't? If you can't see a gap in the numbers, you don't know you've missed one. But I'm going to continue from where we finished, and we finished again with a numerical cock-up because we had Studio Series Galvatron closing the lineup, and that was released as Studio Series 31, as I recall. 8631 that should be, but of course he wasn't, because Optimus Prime was Studio Series 8631, meaning that Galvatron was incorrectly numbered and should have been Studio Series 8632, which means that Scrapper, who is the first of our Constructicons to be released, and therefore the first of the new Studio Series 86 to be released since the transition to the new packaging and branding, becomes Studio Series 8633. At least he does on my channel. Other people can do what they like. They can do nothing about it. They can embrace the change, and that's great. That's great for them. I'm not good with change, so I'm going to be adding a 33 so that I can keep a numerical list going on in my Studio Series 86 playlist. I'll also be covering all of this Studio Series 86 Constructicon team when they're all in hand, and I'll be putting that into my Deconstructing Devastator playlist, which is elsewhere on my channel. But for the here and the now, let's look at what we've got, and I am super excited for this. So the packaging is great. There is Scrapper sitting inside. There's a lovely bit of cartoony Scrapper, and there's robot mode, vehicle mode Scrapper. Over here we can see Devastator giving us some devastatory grimacing, and here we see the first mistake of the new range, which is that he is one of 5. He isn't, folks. He's one of 6. There are 6 Constructicons, so that's an error. So if you think you've collected all 5, you haven't. You've got one missing, so watch out for that. But other than that, it's a really nice piece of packaging. Transformers the movie. You can see I've not even opened it yet. Just rushing to get this out because here in the UK, things come to us very intermittently. Very strange time frames for us to receive stuff. So this Voyager class has literally just landed, and I'm very keen, having done a couple of shorts just to say I've got them, to now get into it. Here he is in robot mode. Here he is in robot mode holding combining guns, and here he is in vehicle mode armored up with the various bits and pieces. And here we see that Scrapper is the engineer and designer for the Constructicons, and he combines with the others to form Devastator. So that's terrific. And there is Devastator live, about to throw Sludge, I think it is, directly into the line of Slug, shall we call him? Let's call him Slag, because that's who he is. So all of this looks really great. I'm really hyped for it. As again, it's a disappointment that we no longer have the backdrops to display them against, but such is life. I can get over it eventually. I don't think I have yet, but I will. I do like this, by the way. I like this this sort of really clean indication of how many steps there are. Blah, 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 blah. I think it would be nicer, just being nitpicky, if we have the Decepticon logo there, as they are Decepticons. It would be nice to have, you know, like we used to have the evil Decepticon logos and the heroic Autobot logos, depending on who was in the packaging in the old days. It just would be, it wouldn't be a major issue, would it? Just it's the same as the tissue paper that wraps the stuff up. That's all Autobots as well. If anything, it almost feels like they're very pro Autobot, not so pro Decepticon. So there we go, packaging out of the way. I'm now going to crack him out. Let's take a look at the monster within. Don't touch that dial. So here we have Scrapper out of his packaging, and I've got to say to you, it's a conflicting picture. I'm going to be honest, it's a conflicting picture. What isn't conflicting is what I mentioned about the wrapping paper, because we've got it again, and it's Autobots, Autobots, Autobots. Come on, folks, give us some Decepticon wrapping paper. Anyway, sorry, I digress. I'm going to have to tear that open in a minute. Yeah, it's a conflicting picture because I think he's a really sturdy guy. I think he's really good. I like him. There are some articulation issues. Now, I don't know why this happens with Constructicons. It seems to dog them throughout the different ranges. But there's limited articulation in places where, for a Voyager class figure, you would probably expect to see some. For example, there's no wrist articulation. There's no waist articulation. Now, you've probably heard about this from people who've already received this way in advance, and I don't care, because it is a factor. It's a factor that there's no wrist and there's no waist articulation. I could probably deal with the no wrist articulation, because being a combiner, there are some factors you have to take into consideration. But I would have thought that we'd have got some waist articulation, because he does look like the sort of figure that is screaming waist articulation, but it's just missing a trick. And again, you can kind of almost see that they could have had some. With a little bit of different engineering, they could have done it. I think they could have done it. Now, what I could then do is let that shape my entire view of this figure, and then base everything on that particular whinge. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to park that on the basis that, okay, he doesn't have that and he doesn't have that. No amount of me going on about it's going to change it. And to be honest, did his G1 counterpart have it? Absolutely not. Did his G1 counterpart have all the articulation in the legs? Because again, once you take away the fact that there's no wrist articulation, you do have lots of other articulation that you can use to your heart's content. So in terms of the limitation on dynamic posing for photography, etc., and for play, I'm going to say this: it's minimal negative impact. He can do everything else that you need him to do. He can pose, he can stand, he's got a pretty decent range of other articulation across the piece. There's a hint at pseudo butterfly joints going on there for some dynamic posing. You know, you can get him into different positions. This guy is not going to be giving you problems when it comes to posing. There are a couple of limitations, we've established that, but aside from those limitations, this is great. It's also pretty great when you consider what the Studio Series is here to do. Studio Series is here to give us a screen, as close to screen accurate representation as is possible. Now, this added complication for us is that the screen accuracy is based entirely on a cartoon for which the animation was, let's say, erratic. Sometimes animation models look one way, another time they looked another way. So they're already playing a very, very dangerous game there in terms of trying to get something that will work to everybody's tastes. So if you take the Studio Series 86 mantra of trying to make it as screen accurate as they can, and still give it the transformation engineering it needs, and still enable it to combine into Devastator, I'm going to say this is a win. It isn't the most spectacular, as I say, as a Voyager. It does have some limitations that I can see fully why they would colour people's judgments. But I can still work with it. I can still do what I want to do with it. And, you know, there's character in this. There are applications. There is enough applications on there to keep me interested. So I'm not gonna weep over it. I'm now gonna tear this open. I'm not gonna weep over this either, but it's a close thing. I mean, I get that it's probably a huge. You're going to hear lots of rustling now while I rip it. I'm going to do it over here. I understand that it's probably very expensive to have 2 different types of paper. You know, I'm sure it's a bank breaker. Yep, we only get the 3 items here. So we have the 2 handheld weapons, which we also know will combine to form Devastator's cannon, and we have his handheld pistol. So in his non-articulated hand, we can put his pistol, and there he goes, all nice and pistoled up, ready for some covert demolition work. Pull out slightly there, and he holds that really nicely. Let's see him hold one of the other cannons. Yep, so he can also very, very deftly hold one of Devastator's 2 cannons. Let's swap that out for the other one, just so we can see them all in play. And then I'll see if I can, with a degree of ease, there we go. Yep, so he can hold that one as well. I'll probably see these more in a bit more detail in vehicle mode, where we can, according to the box art, we can attach them. But yeah, so it looks very, very nicely detailed. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot less going on in this one. But if I'm right, that just pegs into there. And lo and behold, we have a cannon for Devastator standing by for action. So that's robot mode for our scrapper. Let's take 5. Let's hope it's no more than that, while I transform him into vehicle mode. And whilst I'm doing that, it would be tremendous if you could drop a like to this video, and similarly it would be great if you could drop a subscription to the channel. It's completely free. There's no obligation to watch all of the output, because some stuff may not be up your street. Hopefully a lot of it would be, but a subscription would be fantastic. It helps me reach my next milestone, and it also helps the videos get out there so that more people can see the channel, which is kind of rewarding for me. Maybe that's just weird on my part, but hey, I'm weird. Anyway, you have a little click fest on the liking and the subscribing if you want. You don't have to, but it's nice if you do. While I get him transformed, and using the magic of YouTube, I'll transform him into his vehicle mode. Don't touch that dial. Hey there, toy collector friends. We are back with the alt mode, as if by magic. And I've got to say, again, I really like it. It's a very simple, straightforward transformation. He rolls really well. I wasn't sure he would roll as well as he does. The reason I'm saying that, I'll show you in a second. There is some nice detailing on the design. The staircase there, the ladder to climb up to the cabin, for example. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's a way I can say this politely, but I'm conscious that it might not sound polite however I say it, so I'll just say it. He does what the Constructicons do. He folds his arms and legs in and becomes, you know, a dump truck, a digger type of thing. So for that he does it really well. Now again, I think there's an awful lot of reimagining of the way that the Combiner Wars did it. I didn't have the Combiner Wars. I do have the Unite Warriors. I know they're similar but slightly different. But it's very reminiscent of that for me, albeit in a slightly, significantly, well, some may say different scale. And as I've said before, when I do have all of these, I will do a separate video for them, for the Studio Series 86 Constructicons, as part of my Deconstructing Devastator playlist. So there'll be some opportunities for comparisons to occur at that point between the Constructicon ranges. However, it all shapes up pretty well. Yes, the feet tuck away underneath, and this is where I thought we might hit a snag, but there is clearance. However, there's only clearance if you're operating on a flat surface. If you are not operating on a flat surface, you're in trouble, because you're either going to start scraping the bottom of your toy, or it's just simply not going to roll. Now that depends on a lot of factors, whether you just it's there to be played with, in which case enjoy yourself. That's what it's for. If you want to pose it for toy photography, then place it. But I would be very mindful of picking up, putting it where you want it, rather than scraping it across the ground, just in case it's uneven and you might see some damage happening to the other side. Worse, you might see some of this silver being scratched off. You don't want that. Robot mode would look nasty. There's limited articulation here. There is some uppy and downy with the shovel section, with the that bit. That doesn't look quite lined up enough, but maybe it is. There is storage for his hand weapon here on the back, which is very nice. I can also take this out and replace it, as I mentioned earlier, with the 2 weapons that belong to Devastator. So that tabs in at the top there, and then this actually tabs in on the side there, like this. And then we take this weapon, which we can then attach. So many options there. So you've got a very heavily armored scrapper right there, and I think that looks kind of good. That looks kind of good, taking him into battle that way. But again, for me, I just like to have the sort of traditional green is good look. And I think he is great. I really think this character translates well into this piece. Now, I know there are upcoming disappointments with some of the articulation across the other figures, because we've all seen the other videos that people, as I say, have managed to get hold of in advance. I think there is context to be had. I must admit, I was dreading it a little bit, having seen some of those other videos. I'm thinking, I was really thinking we're going to finally get a fantastic Devastator and Constructicon set that isn't out of scale with everything else like the Unite Warriors, but actually captures the flavour of the G1 figures and the G1 alt modes, but blends it in such a way that it introduces the articulation and the what am I looking for? And the characterization, really, that we saw within the movie itself. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a letdown. I'm going to tell you now, it's not a letdown. I think if we get past the lack of articulation in the waist and the wrists, the rest of the figure, as is, works really well. It works really well. I think it's very easy to get hung up on what things don't do. And goodness me, let's just, for those people who do get hung up on that, if you were around when we were collecting G1, let's just remember those. They didn't have, never mind waist and wrist, they didn't have a head articulation, they didn't have arm. The only articulation that existed in robot mode was anything that had to happen so that it could become the vehicle. There was very little consideration for robot mode articulation. So I always kind of, and it may give me sort of rose-tinted glasses, but you know what? I'd rather enjoy the thing I've bought than just criticise it for the sake of what it doesn't do. I want to celebrate what it does do, and I remain grateful to Hasbro for producing the vehicles and robots of my childhood imagination in a closer approximation than I would ever have got and did ever get in the 1980s. And you know what? I had to depend a lot on my imagination in the 1980s. And if I have to imagine that there's waist articulation to enjoy this figure, I think I'll find a way to do that. I really think I'll find a way to do it. But that's my view and my opinion. So I'm only half the battle here. What do you think? Have you picked this up? Were you devastated, no pun intended, although probably a little bit, as to whether or not he had a waist articulation? I get that it isn't what you might expect in a Voyager, but it's not there. So once you know it's not there, were you able to let go of that and enjoy the figure and the vehicle for what it is? Or did it really, really hamper your enjoyment and playability and posability of the figure to the point where you wished you just hadn't bothered with it? And has that coloured your view on the remainder of the Constructicons? I'd be really interested to know what you think down below. I think I might have the makings of a future Toyvolution video where I look at specifically some of the views of how we perceive what we are getting these days versus what we could have been getting in their original iteration. And I always come back to, when it's particularly with Studio Series 86, I come back to, it's a reimagining of the G1 form that really is focused on capturing the artistic qualities of that 1986 animated movie. And honestly, for me, this does that. I put these with other Studio Series 86 figures. I think I'm going to be happy. Is Devastator going to be big enough to take on the Dinobots? Probably not. But I might sub him out for the Unite Warriors one for that. That said, until I have them all in place, I don't know. I don't know. And it may still look good, and it may still look good for photography purposes. But hey-ho, we shall see what happens. For now, I'm more optimistic than I thought I was going to be, listening to other people. And it kind of goes to show that we can all sit on here and do little videos showing you what we've got in our hands. Until you have it in your hand, it's really hard to know if it's going to work for you or not. I hope showing it to you like this has given you an opportunity to make some of those decisions for yourself. But you know what? Seek it out and get it in hand and make your choice from that, would be my advice, because what works for me may not work for other people, and that's absolutely how it should be, because the world is full of difference and change and alternative opinions, and that's great. You know, it should be that. But I'm just sharing mine, and for me, this works okay. It works okay. Could it be better? I'm afraid it could. But if I'm living with what I've got is at least okay. And I think once I've got the others together, they'll be pretty awesome. Anyway, thank you for spending the last 15, nearly 20 minutes with me. You have been an amazing audience. I really appreciate it. I do hope you managed to like the video, and I do hope you've considered subscribing, but I'm not going to go on about it any longer. I have been the Triple TC, that's the Time Travelling Toy Collector. As I said, you've been amazing, and this has been Scrapper from the Hasbro and Takara Tomy Transformers Studio Series 86 line. And he is he's the first of the Constructicons to be released. We'll be looking at the second one imminently. And yes, for me, he is Studio Series 86 33. Take care. Bye-bye for now.